Before we have talked about using your mouth in a new way, and we have also described how you are likely to encounter familiar letters of the alphabet using in a quite new ways. And now we are going to talk about thinking in a new way. This process is almost like going back to the childhood once again, learning to associate sound with objects the way you did when you were very young. For instance, when you were a kid, you didn't know that was a tree when you saw it first. Somebody had to tell you. Chances are, your parents took you outside, pointed to a tree and said, "This is a tree." There aren't much of a good chance that you have learned the word the right way immediately, but your parents will probably had to repeat the word to you on several different occasions before you finally got the hang of it. You had to learn to associate the sound of the word tree with the big green leafy thing that you saw in front of you. Now that you must learn to do it again, only this time, since you grow up, you will be able to get in the hang of it much faster. You will now know why is somebody is pointing to a tree or to a picture of a tree and saying a strange word, but you will still have to learn the new word. You may even have to relearn it many times before you finally actually learn it. Now here is the important idea. Everybody in the world knows what the big green leafy thing is, and we have all seen them hundreds and thousands of times. Every language has their own word for the word tree, and these variation words are not themselves trees. They're just some of the many hundreds of different sounds used in the world to represent the great big green leafy thing. To learn a foreign language, you must get away from the idea of translating the words. Translating takes too much time and mental energy. You will never learn to really speak and understand a foreign language if you have to translate everything. Instead of translating, learn to associate the new sound directly with the image in your mind. When we hear the sound tree in English, we immediately associate with the big green leafy thing. So, when you hear the sound different in another language and it represents tree, you immediately think, that sounds mean that big green leafy thing. You need to establish a new thought patterns by linking over and over again a series of sounds with a mental image or an idea of an action. After a while, the once meaningless sounds become the new reality and image in your mind. And do not think that the challenge of new thinking will be limited merely to the area of new words. It is going to go much deeper than that. You will be learning the new paths. You can pretty well say in any other language anything you might want to say in English. It's just the way of putting it will be different, depending on the language. And remember, each language in the world has its own time-honored peculiar way of putting things that has been worked out independently over hundreds of years or maybe longer. What you are trying to do here is to think in a foreign language, not to translate it. If you do not learn to think in a foreign language, the chances are that you'll never really be very good at it. Learning to think in a foreign language isn't all that hard. You learn to think in a language simply by using the language over and over again, asking and answering simple questions at even the simplest level until you feel comfortable enough with the process. After, when you gain a safe zone there, then you add some new words and a few more new situations and practice using them together with all the words you learned in the previous lessons. And here I'm not suggesting that you should never translate in your life. The point of this is to make sure that you really understand what the sentence means and that the grammar is clear to you. Sometimes, when you meet in a special complicated sentences, you may want to translate it to yourself, just to work it all out. But in the end, you will want to go back and to ensure that you can understand what it means simply by hearing it. And once you really get into the language, you will understand all this a good deal better. Somebody will say something quite fast and you will suddenly realize that you understood it all. And that will be a very great moment, really satisfying for you, and you probably wouldn't be able to repeat the words or even know how it was that you understood it all. But it is a sign that the language is starting to sink in your mind and you are beginning to understand without translating. And as you know, the serious professional translating is a very different art from speaking or understanding a language. And as you may encounter this problem before, some people are very good at speaking but have trouble translating it well for somebody else. Don't worry about this. You're trying to learn the language, not to become a translator.